Thank you, Representative Wiley, for taking care of the minutes. I'll call the meeting to order of July 23rd of the Jail Subcommittee meeting and turn it over to Director Johnson.
Well, thank you for everybody for coming in today. As a follow-up to our July 9th meeting. Contacted Mr. Morin from Blackbox to give a presentation in regards to the expenditures we're going to need to plan for in the 2013 budget with respect to upgrading our phone system at the facility. We've had Blackbox since we occupied the jail in 2003. It wasn't Blackbox at that point in time, and Mr. Morin will give a brief history in regards to the company. The service that we've had from them has been exceptional, and we're just at a crossroads now where our system is outdated and needs to be replaced or upgraded because of the parts aren't being manufactured anymore as of September of this year. So with that, Pete, if you wouldn't mind taking over and doing that presentation.
Jason, may I ask a couple of questions before we start?
Sure.
Mr. Morrow, one of the reasons we had you come in here was I thought that it was reported that you weren't going to make the parts for the system anymore. Is that correct?
The manufacturer will be discontinuing making the parts, yes, as of September of this year.
So there's no other source, a resource for us to get these parts?
Correct, sir.
I mean, you don't have another vendor. You don't make them, obviously, so.
Right.
You don't have another vendor that sells these parts?
No. It's to give you an example, if you bought a Ford Escort, for example, most of the parts in that vehicle would be made by Ford, and you know, there are a few parts in a vehicle that you can get from other manufacturers, but that's not the same thing in the phone world. The manufacturers exclusively make all the parts for the system and the software for the system. And if you want to get parts, then they do come directly from the manufacturer to a distributor like us. And after September of this year, they will no longer be making any of those parts, at which case, if you needed to replace anything, you would have to get used parts, if they're available, from a distributor like us.
Then I would, follow-up question, then I would ask, why does a company such as yours that's, I would call you an end user, because you turn around and sell it to somebody else.
Okay.
Why would you deal with somebody that's going to leave you hanging at the end of 5 years or 10 years or whatever it is?
Well, every manufacturer of equipment, whether it's phone systems or anything else, design a product, they bring it to the marketplace. That product has a lifespan which may run a long time, as this system that you have did. It's been manufactured for about 14 years. And at some point, any manufacturer will decide to make something that's more current to the marketplace or has other advantages, and would stop manufacturing the old product. You know, for example, a 1932 Ford was probably an excellent vehicle at the time, but you're not going to be able to get parts for it anymore. So that's perhaps a good example, and NEC is no different than any other telephone system manufacturer in that regard.
Frank.
Yeah, I got one after Frank, too.
Frank.
1934 Ford, that's 70-some odd years ago. The parts were still available for that long. My question is this: you say they're going to stop making the parts.
Yes.
How long will it be before their inventory of parts will be depleted and we actually can't get a part?
Well, that somewhat depends on the specific part that's needed at the time. You know, there's dozens of parts made for this system. I can't give you an exact date as to when a specific part will no longer be available because naturally it's, you know, not to sound presumptuous, but as they say on TV, while supplies last. So if they get orders for parts that are in their inventory, they're going to ship them, and they would have no way of knowing exactly how soon people are going to want to order those parts for them. But I would, to give you a ballpark, if you will, I would say that roughly 6 to 9 months is about what you could expect on the outside.
6 to 9 months. That's
Yes.
that's the limit of their inventory of parts, even though they know they're gonna stop manufacturing them. You don't think they'd stock them a few more than normal under that condition?
This
I know,
is-
you have no way of knowing.
I have no way of knowing that.
What company are we talking about?
NEC, which is the largest manufacturer of phone equipment in the world.
NAC?
NEC.
NEC.
Right here, Frank.
Which stands for what?
Nippon Electric Company, Japanese company. They make all the parts for the equipment. They've been making telephone equipment for about 100 years.
Harry?
So what I think you're telling me, though, is every 10 or 12 years, we're gonna have to replace our phone system.
That's what it sounds like.
In the phone industry, that's about the expected lifespan of a system,
Why don't I have to replace my house phone every 10 or 12 years?
because it's a very generic phone. It's designed to work on very simple connectivity to a phone line that you get from Fairpoint or whoever your carrier is.
The truth with Harry is they still make coffee cans and string, so he's all set.
I can feature that. If it were
Depends how
that,
long a string is.
if it were as simple as that, then we probably wouldn't be having this discussion.
Do you have an address or a phone number or something for this company?
Yes, I can provide you with that. Their U.S. headquarters is in Dallas, Texas. I can provide you with that information.
Mr. Morrill, I believe everything you said, but it just doesn't seem logical.
That's how the company stays in business.
You know, it's just that they know they're gonna run out of parts and stop making them in September, and that they're not increasing their inventory so they'll be able to service people like Carroll County for an extra 2 or 3 years. And I think that's what Frank was saying, wasn't it, Frank?
Yes, I would have thought that they'd have enough in inventory when they stop making parts for a particular unit, that they would have enough in inventory to at least supply their customers for a year or two until they had a good chance to do something else. It just makes good business sense to do that. I just can't see a company, a large company, saying, okay, as of September, we're not gonna make the parts and there's no more left, you have to get all new equipment. I just can't see that.
Good way for the company to stay in business.
Commissioner Solomon?
That was my question. Would, for example, would the new product that you want to provide, would that also be an NEC?
Yes, ma'am.
So, from the way I see it, that's just the way businesses
Okay.
work. Why would they provide you with this old equipment or old pieces when they could very easily just say, we don't have it anymore, therefore you are forced to go somewhere else?
Well, then I would find another company to deal with.
How many others are there?
Respectfully, sir, every telephone manufacturer in the world follows more or less this type of scenario. At some point in time, they have to say, we have a better product that can better meet the needs of the current customers, and therefore, in order to do that, we have to manufacture something different, and therefore, we can't continue making older equipment. And this is not a new initiative. NEC made this scenario known to distributors, and therefore we passed this information on to our customers going back about 2 years now. So it's not something where we're for lack of a better way to put it, springing a surprise on the customers. It's something where the manufacturer, realizing that customers would have to plan for this, made it known that this would be coming.
Surprise
You
to
know,
us.
I can understand, you know, they stop making a particular component. And as you have things that become unserviceable, you replace them with a newer component. But to say, we're not gonna make parts, so now you have to change your entire system, everything. That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, respectfully, that's not accurate, sir. There's things in your existing system that can be reused. And I'll be glad to show you that in the presentation.
Is this the same system that the nursing home is using? And if not, why
Yeah,
not?
that was another question.
I'm not sure.
It's,
Doesn't make any sense to have more than one system on a company complex, does it?
I'm
Not
not
to me,
sure what
anyway.
the nursing home is
You know?
using, sir.
Not the same.
Not the same system? Well,
Why not?
and why not? And if not, why aren't we using the nursing home system if we're gonna replace it rather than this one? So they'll all be compatible.
we're looking into that. We're looking into that. I think the reason why this system was different from the nursing home is because we built the jail 9 years ago.
I understand that, but
And
now
we
that you're making, now that you've gotta do something,
Mhm.
why not bring it in a line and have everything equal?
Correct. And we've contacted the vendor that the nursing home selected, and they're gonna be putting, because when this has to be replaced under New Hampshire law, you know, it has to go out to bid anyways, so we have to receive a bid from them, and then we'll get a bid from the vendor that put in the system at the nursing home, and we'll have to get a third as well.
Another question, if I may. You said that the manufacturer notified you about 9 months ago,
No, a couple years ago.
a couple of years ago?
Yes, sir.
So within the last 2 years, if we had wanted to put in, or anybody wanted to put in the system, you wouldn't have put that system in, am I correct? What would have?
Correct.
Well, I mean,
We would have-
what would you have done during that 2-year spread?
We would have sold the more current system. We would have said, you could buy this older system,
Yeah.
but it would make more sense
Okay.
for you as the customer to buy the newer version.
Any more questions before we get started? Ed?
Does the entire campus of the county have a single contract for telecommunications?
No, that's what we're
Obviously
just saying.
not, no,
Well,
they
usually what
can't.
they do, you have one contract, and in the contract, when the system has to be upgraded, it gets upgraded, because it's in the contract. So I didn't know if that's how they did it.
That would not be entirely accurate.
That is the ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have a maintenance agreement, there's no company or manufacturer that can say, because you have a maintenance agreement, this been's discontinued, we, for lack of a better way to put it, owe you a brand-new system. That's not how maintenance agreements work. They are essentially to cover defects, replacements, and service of existing equipment.
Follow up?
Yes.
Because usually companies will have all this equipment leased, and under that lease agreement, they replace phones as they age. And
I would respectfully disagree with that, sir, because we do a fair amount of leasing. When you have a lease, if you move to newer equipment, you would have an option to roll that new equipment into the lease, but it's not free or not a direct replacement just because you have a lease. It's not how leasing companies work.
thank you.
Okay, well, Peter, why don't you give your presentation now that we've got the background?
Yes, sir.
Want me to
I'll be happy
Shut
to.
shut the light off?
And this is to benefit you folks, okay? It's not for my benefit. So I have a presentation planned. Jason indicated that it would be beneficial for me to give you an overview of not only this scenario, but what the equipment is. But it's for your benefit. So you haven't seemed shy so far, so please don't be shy now. If I get too technical on something, just say, Peter, what are you talking about? Okay? So I try to keep it fairly straightforward and simple. But I have been doing this 25 years, so if I tend to get a little technical, then just please let me know how I can simplify that for you.
Okay.
All right? Okay, this is what I have planned. Basically tell you a brief overview of us and who we are and what the company is at this point in time. A little overview, if you will, of the equipment that you have and how you can move from that to the newer equipment. A little bit of detail on that, how it's designed. A little overview on the voicemail equipment that's part of that. Cover some of the options that are available for that equipment. I did bring a couple of phones with me today, and I'll give you an overview of that and answer any questions that you may have. Okay? All right. As Superintendent Johnson mentioned, when we first started doing business with you folks, back about 9-10 years ago, the company was called Exponets, and we were a distributor of this equipment at that time, as well as some other equipment. About 4 years ago, we were acquired by a U.S. company, a global company called Blackbox Network Services that is headquartered in Pennsylvania. Big company, about $1 billion a year organization. Is strictly a communications company. That's all we do. We don't sell refrigerators or air conditioners. It's always been a company that dealt with communications products, phone systems, data processing equipment, cabling for buildings, and so forth. It is a public company, so if you want to go on the internet and see how our stock is doing and so forth, you can do that. About 5,000 employees worldwide, and offices all over the U.S. and the rest of the world. The office that I work out of is in Manchester, and we cover pretty much all of New England out of that office. I think a couple fairly important things about the company, perhaps two things. Because it's a very large company, we have a lot of resources that we can provide to the customers to help you get the right solutions for yourself. And we are sometimes what I call a big company with a little company feeling to it. And what I simply mean by that, each office is responsible for its own profit and loss and for how that specific office is run. So what that simply means is that the decisions on how we handle our customers from the Manchester office, those decisions are made locally there in Manchester by our general manager. So it's not someone in Pennsylvania or Houston or anywhere else that's telling us, here's how you're supposed to deal with your customers and what you can offer them. So I think that's important, because when you call us, 800 number, it rings in Manchester, and you're going to get someone in Manchester during normal business hours that will answer that phone and will know you as a customer and will know what product you have and how we can best dispatch the technicians that work out of that office to service you. Okay? So I think that's important, so you don't get lost in the shuffle of being a customer that's part of a very large company. Okay? As a company, we sell several brands of phone equipment and data equipment, but if you went on the website, you'd probably see about 12. Each office can't support all of those because we have to have technicians that are trained on the equipment that we install and service. And so we focus primarily on 3 different manufacturers of equipment out of the Manchester office. NEC, which is what you have today, Cisco, which is also a very large manufacturer, and Mitel, that's another large manufacturer. And when I met with Superintendent Johnson, I knew you had an NEC system, but I didn't come in with a preconceived notion as to what I should propose to you folks. I came in and met with him and discussed what he felt his needs were, what was beneficial out of the old system, if there were any things that he felt were not meeting the need out of the old system. So I took that into consideration and said, having reviewed all that, that an NEC system moving forward was going to be the best choice out of what we could offer.
Now, of those 3, what is our system currently? Who manufactures
NEC.
the
NEC.
It's an NEC system. Yes, sir.
all of the equipment that the jail has is NEC?
That's correct.
Okay.
Peter, is there anything in our system that is jail-specific or correctional institute specific that would prevent Cisco or Mattel or anybody else quoting on it? And do we have a system that is higher than the regular normal requirements because it's a criminal facility?
No, no, sir.
Okay. So we're not asking for anything out of the ordinary in our system. It could be,
No.
It could be a vegetable market or a car wash. We'd be getting the same system.
Yes, in some regards, there's a lot of features in the system, and different customers may use one feature more than another, but those are standard.
Okay.
If I may,
Sure, Frank.
Madam Commissioner, can you tell me, does the nursing home, do they use any of those? Is one of those what the nursing home uses, do you know? You know?
Okay? All right. One reason, well, there were several reasons, but one of the more important reasons that I chose to quote NEC equipment was that...
Excuse me, Peter.
Yes,
You
sir.
mean 9 years ago or
No.
coming up?
Coming up.
Okay.
It was a couple of things. NEC realizing that customers that they have today that have the older equipment might want to migrate, came up with programs to allow them to do that with some cost benefit to them. Not only technology benefit, but in short, saying these are customers that already have NEC equipment. If they want to get to the new equipment, we're not going to treat them like brand new customers that just called us for the first time. We're going to give them some advantages financially and otherwise to get from where they are today to the newer equipment. Basically, in short, saying we want to keep these customers on NEC platforms if we can, so let's provide some scenarios that make that easier for them to do that. Okay? So that's one of the reasons why I chose to stay with NEC equipment. Okay? And some of those advantages is that there is some equipment that is there today that can be reused. They have some discounts that they provide for customers that have NEC equipment to go to the newer equipment. There's some technology advantages that I'll try to show you. And as we discussed earlier, at the end of September, they're discontinuing the current product. So, okay. There's a couple of ways that you can go from the system you have today to the latest scenario. One of those ways is that you can reuse the bulk of the equipment that you have today. The cabinet that's there, the circuit cards that are in it that control the phones and connect you to outside lines, the existing telephones that you have today can all be reused if you choose to do that. So the bulk of what is there today could stay in place, and you could continue to utilize that for as long as that continues to be beneficial for you.
What would be the life of that? This is stuff that's already there. Would that eventually also be discontinued because of obsolescence?
Well, it will be discontinued
Yeah.
in September, but that doesn't mean it's going to
No, I'm
drop dead
I'm talking about
on
the portion,
October 1st.
I'm talking about the portion you can reuse, like the circuit cards and that type of thing.
Right.
Those eventually going to have to be replaced, same as everything else, right?
Yeah, I'd say so,
Okay,
yes,
yeah.
eventually.
Okay.
So that's something that you can do as needed, when needed, and you can migrate either over time, if you will, when it's beneficial to you, or you also naturally could go to all new equipment right out of the box, if you will.
May I? What pieces of equipment? Is it just a telephone?
No, sir.
Or are there other things that they're gonna stop making component parts for? All of it, or just?
All of it.
All of it?
All of it, of the old equipment, will be end of manufacture.
So the stuff that we reuse won't be able to be replaced either. Am I correct?
You could do one of two things when that's needed. You can replace it with the newer hardware, and I'll show you in a few minutes how that works. Or if there was any stock left or refurbished or used parts that are that model, those are all choices that you would have at that time.
Commissioner Solomon.
So, what I'm hearing is, when we could use everything as is as long as it's working at the present time. And that as things break down, then you can migrate into an upgrade.
You could add on to the upgrade that I'm going to show you. Or, if there is any stock available of those older parts, you could take advantage of that. Or, if there's refurbished, as they say, parts, you could do that as well. That's a choice.
So,
That makes
that
sense.
would mean then that if the parts are, if everything's working and we don't need any particular part at the moment, we can continue the way we are going. But it would appear to me, and perhaps you're going to talk about that the newer equipment is going to have some newer functions or
Yes.
better functions.
That's correct. And I'll show you exactly
So,
how that would
so it
work.
really boils down to whether or not we need the newer functions, or whether we can use the old and place the telephone or whatever as it breaks, right?
To some degree, and I'll clarify that,
Okay.
okay?
Frank?
Is there a single component to the system that if it broke down and we couldn't get a part for it, it would render the entire system obsolete?
Yes, sir.
There is.
The main processor. That's correct. It would be down. Much like if you look, if the motor broke in your car's not going anywhere.
Is that,
You hear him, Frank?
Yeah.
is that something that could be replaced or not, or is that going to be?
I'm going to
obsolete?
show you.
Okay.
That all of that,
All right.
everything you have today will absolutely be end of manufacture in September. Everything.